project, we have created a total of 4 problem-based learning scenarios for clinical management students. Although the scenarios differ greatly, they are all set in a residential care facility context. To put the scenarios into context, the care complex was created in Second Life and named the Cedars. It features a residential area complete with conservatory and grounds, and an office area which transforms into a different space depending on the scenario. 3 of the scenarios required artificially intelligent avatars, aka chatbots, to be created. These non-player characters would take on different roles within the scenarios, for example an unhelpful manager, and the students would be able to interact with them as they would a fellow player. Another tool used within the scenarios was machinima. Machinima is a term referring to real videos created within virtual worlds. Indeed, what you are currently watching is a perfect example of machinima. In this scenario, the students take on the role of a management team of a residential care service in the NHS. There is widespread concern throughout the sector regarding the C. difficile infection. The students' service is experiencing higher rates of death than average, and a front-page newspaper article published today is not helping matters. The students arrive in-world at the Cedars Care Complex to find a ringing phone in the office. They click the phone to hear the message, which sets the scene for the scenario. Students can then call in the counsellor character, a chatbot, to discuss the issue. The counsellor is the chair of the local health screening committee and wants to know what's happening about the C. difficile crisis. When they have finished talking to the chatbot character, the students are encouraged to discuss the issues raised as a group and decide on a plan of action. This scenario was tested in our first testing session by a small group of users.
I found that you have to, or I had to force myself to take pauses and listen. When the only guy said something, I wanted to respond to it straight away. And I had to actually discipline myself to know I'm going to stop and listen, because I could hear Brendan's keypad going, I'm going to stop and listen to what Brendan's going to say first.
I think for me a challenge is I'm not a touch typer, and I will be looking at the keyboard. So when I've had a big rant and sort of pressed send, then have to kind of look back and see what people have been saying while I've been, tapping away slowly. So I guess, the more people are kind of skilled with just using a keyboard, it kind of gives them a kind of an advantage, which is just interesting, unless there's some sort of like voice.
There is voice. I wonder how you feel about using voice.
I think it's really interesting, because we see that there's an advantage in this scenario of touch typing. But the reality of it is that in any meeting scenario, there are certain advantages that people bring to that meeting, aren't there? Being articulate would be exactly the same in a meeting where you're communicating verbally. Being tall, whatever. So in a sense, you can't eradicate the fact that in any meeting situation there are probably going to be advantages. It's just this is a different one.
In this scenario, the students take on the role of the commissioning manager for the overall management of contracts in this sector, of which the Cedars is one. The Cedars is having many problems, including absent staff and difficulty managing patients. The key social worker for the Cedars, Ruth, has brought these matters to the students' attention, and it is their job as commissioners to decide what to do next. The scenario begins by the students watching a machinima highlighting the issues that the Cedars is facing.
Sometimes I just feel like we're completely overstretched and I do not know how much more I can take.
I'm not sure how much more of it we can take. Without Karen here, it has been especially difficult to manage everything. The budget is massively stretched.
This is a message for the local authority commissioning manager dealing with the cedars. I am becoming increasingly concerned. So what do we do?
Wait for the commissioner, I suppose. The annual review is in 2 weeks.
I wonder what the decision will be.
Well, we will have to wait and see.
After viewing this video, the students must discuss the problems and decide on a course of action for the cedars. This scenario was tested in our second testing session by a different group of users.
I think the actual scenario was quite good because, I mean, like I said at the start, it's pretty much like I'm on placement at the moment, and that is what's happening I'm in a care agency, not a care home, and that's what's happening at the moment. And we've got kind of Sea-Sky coming in, and the commission is having to figure out what they need to do. So I think it was quite a quite good scenario.
I thought the different settings that we used were really good. You know, the the commissioners talking in the boat, and the staff room, I presume, where the two women were muttering. If you were just doing that as a paper-based scenario in a classroom, you wouldn't get any of that.
If you were like shown in a classroom that kind of video scenario, or in kind of a in a workshop or something, then everyone would start arguing with each other about how they could do things, but everyone would be talking over, and it would be the loudest person that shouts that gets their voice heard. Whereas if you're typing, everybody kind of has a fair kind of say, so I thought that was quite good.